Welcome to the Back in Business podcast with her, Liz Barkley, whose fringe is almost down to her chin, and me, whose fringe is nowhere near his chin.
The Mickey Clark, the man whose comb over has thrown in the towel and left. Mickey, I was really impressed with your blog this week that says that your local pub is delivering to the door.
Yes,
how much of that is food?
Quite well. I was surprised at how well he's done, because we have a sort of love-hate relationship, me and the public, and I've always made it clear that I think his beer stinks most of the time and he charges too much. But that said, you know, there were worries when the lockdown started whether or not he'd survive, and he actually seems to be doing very well. I mean, Wednesday night was pizza night. Last night they had the steak pie and the hunter's chicken and all that sort of thing. And you know, you go and pick it up, and they seem to be making a good fight of it. They're ticking over. What his situation, of course, is with his landlords as far as rent's concerned, I don't know. But you know, if all pubs are like that, then there's going to be a chance that a lot of them will survive. But of course, the worry still is that a lot of pubs won't survive, because if they're forced to pay rent, they ain't got the money there to do it.
And I've noticed that a lot of pubs around here are doing something very similar. But it is about innovation. It's now about them trying to differentiate between what they are doing. Innovation is the name of the game.
Very much so. Yeah, I mean, it's not just the pubs. It's you know, I mentioned the local butchers. They breed their cattle. They have an abattoir there. You know, you normally go to the shop and buy it. They're now delivering, and they're also working with a local farmer. You know, with a market garden, and you go there on the Friday. You can buy meat, fish, and you can buy your vegetables as well. And you pre-order it and go there, and you know, it seems to be working well. And I think it's something they may well attempt to keep going.
I think I can see on Zoom that your waistline is expanding. Am I right? Don't answer that. Our business editor, Declan Curry, is here. Declan, last week we were thinking it was very, very hard to find anything optimistic in the news, but there is innovation going on out there. Are you beginning to see any glimmers?
Well, I'm delighted by the idea of Mickey Clark keeping the pub industry going one pub at a time as each week passes. And I can think of no better man to take on that particular mantle. The high street is reopening. Greggs is reopened. We've seen Costa Coffee say that it's going to reopen 1,100 branches within the next couple of weeks. When they reopened the Primark in Northern Ireland, Second City, Derry, Londonderry yesterday, there were people queuing round the block from 5 o'clock in the morning. Such was the lure of cheap pyjamas in that particular city. And the retail sales figures which have come out this morning show that there has been a revival in sales. It's not a full recovery. We're still spending a lot less than we were in February, but the nation went a bit DIY crazy under lockdown, so paid sales have gone up, sales of furniture have gone up. B&Q say they've done particularly well online, and we've seen another sign that online shopping is the big winner from lockdown. DPD, the delivery company, looking to hire some 6,000 extra workers, most of them delivery drivers. And that's coronavirus accelerating a change that was already underway in the industry.
The more I talk to people, the more I realise that the way I described it yesterday was, we've lifted the turf off the lawn and realised that the soil underneath was all cracked in the first place. And there's an awful lot of problems.
It needs a bit of watering and yes. A bit of baby bio as well. There is one other development in the news this Friday morning, which will give some encouragement to hairdressers and the pubs industry and restaurants as well. It is that the Joint Biosecurity Centre, the UK's chief medical officers, have now all agreed, all four of them, that the COVID threat levels should be lowered by 1 notch. So they are no longer saying that transmission is high or rising exponentially, and that clears the way for a greater reopening on the high street.
And I know we're going to be talking about hairdressers in a minute, and they are hoping to open on the 4th of July. I've got the very first appointment with my hairdresser. So I am desperately hoping.
You need it.
Just the one. It lasts all day. But the shops opened in England this week. Scotland, they're hoping to open on the 29th of June. Wales hopes to reopen on Monday. That's Monday the 22nd. And in Northern Ireland, they're open already. I love the way, Declan, you said Primark. We're never quite sure exactly how we pronounce it. And we have heard of big queues in the cities, in the city shops. We've also heard about lack of toilets putting off people going out shopping. So our reporter, Jyoti Rambai, has been speaking to the shopkeepers. Jyoti, what's happening?
Yes, so it's pretty similar for small, independent, non-essential retailers that have opened up this week. So I've been speaking to various ones. Many of them have opened up and they have seen a rise in the number of people coming to their stores. So I spoke with Sam Cook, who owns Moose Life in Woodbridge, Suffolk. So she goes, it's been great. She goes, one of the things that they struggled with was finding clear guidance to ensure that their store was COVID safe, if you like. And she had to do a lot of research. So she would have liked a little bit more guidance from the government on that. But she also thinks that the excitement of shops reopening will die down soon, and she's expecting a dip in sales. She's like, it's been great, but she doesn't know. Everything's uncertain at the moment, which is quite understandable.
So is she saying then that there just isn't enough guidance out there, or it's hard to find, or it's confusing when you do find it?
I think part of it is that the guidance that is available is quite vague. So it can be a little bit confusing, and therefore she's had to go out and do more research to ensure that she is and her customers feel safe coming into her store to do some just shopping, if you like. And
customers, of course, have been asked by the government to get out there and spend, but we can't do that if we don't feel we're safe in the first place.
I mean, exactly, it's a bit of a catch-22 situation there. And I think while some businesses have been able to adapt, a lot of independent stores rely on their loyal customers and their local community supporting them. So it is really important for them to ensure that their customers feel safe, because they do want them to come back again.
And that's a trend that's emerged this week, Josie, is the consumer. Everything hinges on the consumer. It's how the consumer is going to behave going forward that is going to determine whether these businesses thrive and flourish or they wither. Whichever industry you look at, whether it's the car industry, the airline industry, retail, the hospitality industry, it's all going to be about the attitudes of the consumer himself or herself, and even how they spend the money. We're not using cash anymore. We had a laugh this week. My wife picked up my wallet and said, "You've still got that tenner in your wallet?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "How long's it been there?" I said, "Since about early April."
And the moths came out with it. The moths came out with it.
But it points out an example of what's going on, that we've changed and the businesses have got to change with us. Internet, when it comes to retail, the technology's creeping in and we've got to keep up with it.
But we're not, Mickey, we haven't all got money either, because there are an awful lot of people desperately worried that they're going to be made redundant. So they're saving anything that they possibly can.
Well, that's
and
the
lots
other
of
thing.
people already on benefits. It's confidence.
Yeah, you don't go out and spend money if you haven't got it, or you're worried that you won't be able to have a job next week. And that's the real problem facing us. The Bank of England has said on Friday that, there is an indication that the global or the British economy is starting to pick up, because all the economic news we're getting at the moment is blindingly obvious. Employment's dropped off a cliff. Economic growth's dropped off a cliff. No, really, Sherlock? I mean, these people get paid a lot of money for that rubbish.
Josie, we're not expecting you to be Sherlock.
But the thing about what you said about people and how they behave, that was actually something that came up when I was speaking to quite a few people. And generally speaking, people actually have been behaving. They're respecting the 2 metre social distancing rules. they're respecting the fact that most businesses want you to pay contactless. So generally speaking, on that side of things, I think people are behaving. I think there is room for...
Can I bring in Simon? Sorry, Judy, I'm talking over you because I can't hear you. Our technology isn't working very well. Can I bring in Simon McVicker there on that whole point about the 2 metre rule? Because I know, Simon, it's something that gets you very exercised. Simon, as our public affairs director, give us the political landscape around all this.
Yeah, well, the Prime Minister had a rather, I think, robust meeting with his backbenchers this week in the 1922 committee, and he was told on no uncertain terms to do 2 things: get the schools open and reduce the 2 metre rule. So he's got his orders from the backbenchers, and I do think it'll be that is the direction that he's going to go in. It just depends what the medical people are saying to him. However, we have a sign that maybe the medical people are moving his way, because Northern Ireland, of all places, the Northern Ireland government has reduced the 2 metre rule to 1 metre rule, and they're getting the same advice as Boris. So if Northern Ireland can do it, why can't Boris? And the good news there also for Northern Ireland is they have confirmed that hairdressers will be allowed to reopen from the 6th of April. Of June.
No.
That's the tax year. Wrong year.
July, sorry.
What year are you living in?
I'm afraid every month is merging into each
This
other.
is what lockdown does to you. You lose all track of space and time.
Yeah, you see, there's no Wimbledon or anything like that. Anyhow, the news here in England is that the hairdressers are expecting to open on the 4th of July, and I know many hairdressers are taking bookings at the moment. But Boris's deputy, Dominic Raab, commenting on the restaurant situation on BBC Breakfast yesterday, said it was fraught with risks to reopen the restaurants and the pubs. So their prospects are not looking so good in July. And I think that might have come as a bit of a shock to them. But again, the government is giving out mixed signals, and it changes on a day-to-day basis. Just one final thing I'd like to just mention. I think we need to keep our eye on Europe, because if we look at Germany, where up until now they've had a pretty successful fight against the COVID virus, well, it looks like they're having a hike of infections as they are easing the lockdown. And there seems to have been a lot of cases around abattoirs. And this now brings in a whole new area of concern for governments. Is there something happening at abattoirs that is incubating this disease? Or is it just because there are a lot of low-paid workers there? I don't know. But this is Germany, the richest country in Europe, and I think there is some concern around this latest news.
That German sausage.
Certainly very concerning as far as I'm concerned. But as a vegetarian, I'm hoping I'm not contributing to it in any way.
How long have you been a vegetarian?
Since as long as you've known me, and not much longer than that. Since I was in my teens.
I seem to remember you slobbering over the odd steak. Perhaps that was mine.
Listen, this is no place...
You can have food envy, it doesn't mean you have to eat it.
This is no place to start discussing food, please. Can we discuss hairdressers? Because Simon and Declan and Jyoti have talked about hairdressers. And we've got Hilary Hall, who's Chief Executive of the National Hair and Beauty Federation, Daniel Granger, who launched a new business in Nottingham just before lockdown, and I'm not sure whether it's called We Are Perfectionists or not, but looking at Daniel's Zoom picture, I can see that slogan. And Susan Routledge is owner of the Finishing Touch Clinic in County Durham. Daniel, as I've said already, to the great envy of lots of people, I've got first appointment with my hairdresser on the 4th of July. Are they going to open?
Congratulations. I mean, that's like you got in there first. I have a waiting list as well. I've now booked up 12 weeks, and there's a lot of clients out there that are really upset with me because I decided that I wasn't going to work extra hours because I feel like being out of work for so long, and we work in such a creative industry where, you know, we have to be full attentive to our clients and we can't be rushing through. We're going to make mistakes, and these guys are really want to build their self-esteem again. They want to feel better. And I think the first haircut that you have, where you go out and you look stinging, you know, you come out there feeling amazing, you're going to feel that life has kind of started to kind of ease out of COVID and life is becoming normal. It's one of those services that, you know, you spend a bit of time with human contact. It's the closest you're going to get to anybody, and especially, you know, with Susan in the beauty industry as well. We're really working close contact. So there's a few worries there, but not many.
So
I never ever
we
came
are
out the
opening,
barber
as far as
surgeons.
you're concerned. You're preparing to open.
Yeah.
Say that again, Mickey.
I was going to say, I never came out the barber surgeons feeling stinging. You know,
I don't know. I could do wonders with hair.
Is this a woman's thing, though? I mean, is it?
No. It's definitely a man's thing. I mean, I'm looking at your Zoom picture there, my friend, and I could set you up with a full head of hair. I could give you my hair, like this style. Don't you worry, I could do anything. That's what they used to call it, a syrup. Yeah. That was it. I was looking for that terminology. Yeah, I mean, they've come a long way since then. I mean, I work in the movie industry, and we kind of like, you can't tell whether someone's wearing hair or not. So next week you're going to see Bob down the road with a full kind of mop, and you're like, what happened to you in lockdown? I just grew it back. Actually, he stuck a syrup on his head.
If I walked into the pub with a syrup on, they'd think I had a dead cat there. I mean, I couldn't put up with the rib taking that was going on.
Listen, you have thrown down a challenge there, Daniel. We may well take you up on that. And for those who don't know, Mickey, or can't see him, you could actually polish that head so it gleams.
I have the Smalling short back and polish.
Yeah.
Can I ask Susan, though, because you've actually, Daniel, just pointed out something. The beauty industry is all very up close and personal. It's about as close as you're going to get to another human being in a service situation like that, customer service situation. How safe can you make it?
Well, obviously we have everything prepared that we think we need prepared. We've got the PPE, we've got everything. We just haven't got the guidelines from the government yet on, because we are working in treatment rooms as well, so having the ventilation and things like that. We're waiting for Daniel and everyone to cut the hair so we can do the eyebrows and things. But we are very, very close contact. So whereas with hair you can distance a little bit. We are doing facial work, and you can't help but be in constant contact. So we don't know. I mean, feedback from clients has been great. Everyone's dying to come back, but we don't know whether there will be an element of people who still will be a little bit wary,
And have you had any contact from the government? Have you had enough support from the government to tell you what you should be doing? Guidance, if you like.
There hasn't really been anything that's come direct from the government, but the likes of Hillary and the NHBF and things, obviously, all of the organisations we're getting guidance from, but it isn't anything that's definitive at the moment. So we don't know, at the moment, for my business, we have 10 treatment rooms, but we don't know how many people we can actually have in the building or anything like that. So what we're doing at the moment, we're planning the rota. We haven't started booking clients yet, because we don't know whether, it could be that the government say, right, you can do nails, but you can't do facial work. We just don't know yet. Because there isn't really two beauty salons that do the same treatments either. It can be diverse from just nails right through to laser and more aesthetic things. So it's really quite hard. So what we've done, we've decided to split the team. We are going to work longer hours, so that we've got two teams in case somebody gets tracked and traced or anything like that, so that we can still work. But as I say, it's just very hard. We're in a bit of a limbo situation, really, until we get some definite guidelines on what we can do. I have a friend who has a salon over in Chicago, and she does a lot of facial work, but she has to wear a mask and the client has to wear a mask at the moment. So that's just taken that whole element of her service out. But then different states in America have different guidelines. So, you know, another state, you don't have to do that.
Can I just bring in Hilary there? Because Hilary, you have written to the business secretary and said, hang on, where's the guidelines? We need these guidelines. And the response was, they'll be here as soon as possible, I think.
Well, we've written to him a number of times on that theme. The latest one was the day before yesterday, saying, look, you know, we're coming up to the 4th of July. To be fair, that is the earliest date that salons can reopen, and that's in England. But, you know, salons need lead-in time to prepare, time, as Susan says, if the guidelines come up with some surprises, you need to have time to get those in place and make those final arrangements. So it's getting very close to the wire now, and the level of anxiety across the industry as a whole is definitely rising. I think it has helped that in some parts of the country now there are some dates, because we've talked about the date for England, but for Northern Ireland, Wales and Scotland, even dates haven't been available, never mind the guidelines. So, you know, there's a lot of uncertainty out there, and every time we talk to businesses, what they really want is the certainty of the guidelines, particularly around PPE. You know, just as Susan said, when you're in close physical contact with clients, PPE is really important, and we're relying on the government for the medical and scientific advice about exactly what is needed.
Do you think the government is taking the view that we don't need to offer advice because you're going to have to rely on common sense? You know your industry, you know how you operate. You are the best judges of what measures to put in place.
Yes, exactly that. And in fact, many across the industry, including ourselves, provided guidelines of our own based on our knowledge of the industry, based on what's happening in other countries, particularly in Europe, because we're members of a European body. But there's always that uncertainty that because the government have produced guidelines in different sectors, you know, at the end of the day, their guidelines are going to trump ours. So if the stuff that we've put in is not in line with the government guidelines, there's going to need to be a quick adjustment. If it had been left to us, those guidelines, we published ours 4 weeks ago. And we felt that they were very robust and workable, and that's certainly the feedback we got from our members. 96% said they found it really, really useful.
I would just say that with Northern Ireland confirming the 6th of July as opening day for hairdressers, and of course Northern Ireland has slightly stricter Sunday trading laws, I think you should take it that is going to be around the time when hairdressers are going to be allowed to reopen. And my own hairdresser, for instance, he's been ready since the beginning of June. He's taken advice from your association, but he's Italian. He's been talking to the Italian hairdressing industry and how they rebuilt after their crises. So, I mean, I think these are business people, and they're pretty well on the ball about how to get back into business.
And it's interesting too that although Northern Ireland have published a date, when you look for the guidelines, they just bounce back to the England guidelines for industries that are already open, not the ones that are specifically being developed for close proximity working, which is the route that England is taking.
It's interesting, Hilary. In one of my other guys is I do a bit of work for BBC Wales, and the one thing I'm having to find is that I've got to be very careful about what I say about a specific country when it comes to what's happening. And I've got to say that I think, you know, having devolution perhaps in many instances is a good thing, but in a situation like this where you face a national crisis, it means that people are getting terribly confused about what they can do and what they can't do. Because we have 4 different countries and they all seem to be pulling in different directions at different paces. Is that something you're finding as well?
Oh, absolutely. And of course, every time we put up a post about something that's happening in England, there's this immediate chorus of, what about Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland? And we've seen that not just in our industry, but even the social distancing requirements and which members of the family you can see. As it happens, my daughter is in Wales and she's still confined to a 5 miles radius for visits, whereas in England, you know, you can go anywhere. So those inconsistencies, personally, I find unhelpful, certainly from a business point of view. You know, when you're operating across the 4 nations, I think it has added to the confusion. And I don't know if there's sufficient difference between hairdressing in Northern Ireland and Wales to merit the different requirements.
I just wonder for Daniel and for Susan, is there a tipping point? Is there a point where the restrictions are so extensive where the let me ask that again. I just wonder for Daniel and for Susan, is there a point where there's a certain number of customers you need to get in to make it worthwhile opening the business at all? What is that point?
Do you want me to go, Daniel? Oh. Yeah, I mean, there is, because you've got now, you've not only got the extra expense of the PPE, but you've also got the extra, and that has gone up hugely in cost as well. You know, we use PPE all the time, but like now, some companies have gone up 400%. But on top of that, then you also have, like, in between each client, you've got sort of the cleaning that room down or that area down as well. So, and that's not something that you can really like skimp on, you know, it has to be done correctly. So you know, the whole day, you know, on a sort of a 9-10 hour day, you know, a couple of hours of that possibly going to be cleaning now, you know, and because if you've got a 15-minute turnaround time, you know, it massively eats into the profits of the business.
Yeah, I think we're just going to be, I mean, I'm very fortunate that I've got a really, really big salon, but I do feel for the guys that, you know, work really close proximity. I can get 2 meters between every unit. I can have a full-on team. I've got 2 salons downstairs, upstairs. So I'm very grateful for the things that I've got. You know, I'm really in a good position. I am not worried. Like, if anything, I'm looking at this as a win-win-win, because I can deliver a better service, the service that I've always wanted to do. Such as, you know, when you go onto a five-star hotel or go onto a plane, you turn left. When you turn left, you get your little kind of pack that's just for you. It's in a sealed little pack. You know, everything's laundered for you. You've got your own little drinks. And I think the client's experience now is going to be just upgraded, and that's what I've really worked on. What is the positive out of all of this? What's going to come next? Well, what have I wanted to do? What can I do? And yes, there's a bit of expense, but hey, my clients are going to pay it. Also, you know, there's some things to kind of counteract. Okay, so we can't have as many clients in, so what do? Well, you take away all your discounts that you probably had. You raise your prices because people will pay it because we're in demand. You know, they want us now more than ever. They really appreciate our company and our business because their self-esteem over the last 12 weeks has changed. You know, they're kind of feeling a little bit grown out. They're feeling a little bit, they look in the mirror and they've got the roots coming through. You know, they've perhaps attempted a home colour and they realise that it's not good as a professional colour, and they really appreciate the haircut. And we're kind of just rising the prices, and my clients will pay it. Those people that I've given discounts before, maybe I did a colour Thursday, you know, where people can have a cheaper colour. I'm actually going into employing more people as well. I've had an influx of people wanting to come from and work for me because of the way I've challenged my company and challenged the industry, and helped other smaller businesses out as well, and give them advice and put myself in their shoes to help my business grow. Because when you kind of speak something out loud, and it kind of makes sense, and if you're kind of selling it out there, now we have no guidelines, none at all.
But that premiumization like that is great if you're able to charge higher prices. What about, you know, the barbers in my hometown in Strabane in Northern Ireland who are still charging £5 for a haircut?
Well, that's up to them. They shouldn't do that. They should feel their worth. They are worthy of charging a bit more money. They're so in demand. You know, they've had their missus at home cut their hair or their husband cut their hair, and it's like that experience. They're missing the experience, and for human nature to feel a heightened of self-esteem is that kind of, you know, going somewhere and being treated. It's such as Suzanne was so important to people's, you know, well-being. It's such an important thing, and we've all felt that little bit low. And those things, like such as going and having a pamper, looking after yourself, having your nails done, having a facial done, having your hair colour done, feeling fresh, that kind of gives you that boost.
Daniel, I
absolutely
buy everything you're saying, and I'm going to go into lockdown if there is another one with my hairdresser. You don't care what anybody says. Mickey is in the meantime wondering what roots are. But Susan, if you have a business that's really zinging along like Daniel's in the first place, and you have the scope to innovate, that's one thing. You, I think, had to furlough most of your staff. What's the situation? Will you be bringing them all back? Will you have to think about redundancies? What's your situation?
My take is that we're going to aim to bring everybody back. You know, my business has been established 32 years, so we're really well established, and we do charge for a premium for what we offer, and we do offer really high-end treatments, which is fortunate because then you do have that leeway. I think it's the salons who possibly, like Danielle said, you know, in businesses where they are it's more of an express service kind of thing, where it's like, rather than for Danielle and I, it's more, you know, people come for the experience and they're quite willing to pay for that. For somebody who it's just like a very quick in, quick out express treatment, that's where it's going to, I think, really hit hard, because that it's costed at that, and no longer can you do it at that, I don't think, you know.
Yeah, I have within our industry, there's many different aspects of different ways people run their salons, and I've got a good friend of mine, he's a very successful hairdresser, Ashley Gamble. He cuts hair within 30 minutes and he works back to back. He jumps from one unit to another He approximately charges 50% of my price list, because he can do that because he works a little bit harder than I work. And we've been mentoring each other in these groups. So I've got 60 hairdressers, like some of the most famous hairdressers in England, and we're all kind of now saying, well, this is setting the bar, you know. So now it's more about taking your time, having the time to clean down each station, having time to kind of do the laundry, having people in different areas of the salon. And making the service a lot more, you know, a bit slower, a bit more time kept. So I do wonder how he's going to survive, and how he's survived is he's adapted, he's changed to something. He's going to work smarter, not harder, and that's it. Yeah.
Hilary, I love the sound of all of this, but the reality is, on a lot of the high streets, there are hairdressers who are simply not going to be able to adapt in that way. What's the industry going to look like in 3 years' time?
That's a difficult one to answer. I think at the moment, people are really focused on getting reopened and dealing, you know, as you've heard from both Susan and Daniel, dealing with this huge spike of pent-up demand. Beyond that, it's a very mixed picture. I mean, looking at the news that's coming out about the economy and, you know, the possible redundancies, shrinking, and so on. I think the second half of the year is going to be much more challenging. And I think that's where the innovation, the salons that really know their market, and, you know, you've heard from both Susan and Daniel, they absolutely know their market, but there are different markets, and that's where the price points will be different. But I think some salons in the future are going to struggle to survive because they don't adapt, they don't know their market, they're very nervous about pricing. We've been asked a lot of times, you know, oh, should I be thinking of putting my prices up? Well, yes, there's increased demand at the moment, there's increased costs with PPE, increased time, cleaning time, and so on. So salons that are not taking those kinds of steps, I think, have a much more difficult future. Having said that, the positive is that hair and beauty tends to do reasonably well in recession. Yes, people might stretch the times between appointments, but it is one of those services, and we've seen it in lockdown as well. People are very reluctant to give up. Also, we don't face online competition, which so many retailers do. So I think the longer term future is positive, but I think it's going to be a rocky road ahead.
Okay, can I just ask all three of you, as we wind this up, what is the one thing that you think needs to happen to help your sector really get back in business? Hilary?
For me, I'm afraid it is a short-term aim. Let's get those guidelines open. Let's get the dates confirmed. Let's get salons retrading, and then we will take stock and look for the longer-term future.
Susan?
I think for me, obviously, number one is what Hilary said, and I think it's some longer-term support, because I think, you know, because we've had sort of the bounce back loan, we've had the grant. at the moment everything's looking okay. I think it's going to hit again once it gets sort of to the start of 2021, anyone who's survived. So I think it's more of like, to me, long-term help, I think, to help people for the long term.
Yeah, I think we're going to definitely have like a massive. We're going to have the spike, but it's how you control that spike, because that spike will always be there on a 6-week turnaround. That's the thing. Everyone has their hair done, so it's about the leader of the company taking control and doing everything now from when we have the time. We've got time to plan. So, you're going to book a 6-week cycle. We're fully booked anyway. Then you're going to repeat that 6-week cycle. Then you're going to repeat it again. And you can do that because you have the time now. You've got time to sit on the phone. You've got time to manage your appointments. There's so many things that you can upgrade the service now. You can do online sales. You can do drop shipping for their products, so you don't have to kind of mess around with products in your. There's so many things that we can do. I do not rely on the government. The government helped me so much. I'm so grateful. I'm looking at other countries. I've got friends in Italy, and they're not reopening. They're not doing anything, and we are in such a good position that we need to start focusing on what we have got rather than what we haven't. And what we've got is a great opportunity here. And I've had a great opportunity. I started an online company called We Are Perfectionists, where I started educating every single assistant that was losing out on their college education, and they were about to kind of get qualified. So I've retrained 500 hairdressers ready to go back into, let's say, back into war, including my own team. Every single Monday I was teaching them, I was behind the camera, I set up a webinar business. I've earned some money from that so I can pay another 6 months' wages. And it's the way that I've adapted, and I'm going to adapt my salon, and I'm not going to rely on the government. What I am going to rely on is, how am I going to pay this? Like, they've given me 100 grand. They've paid my team. They've paid my salon. They've given me these grants. They've given me rate relief. How are they going to want that money back? That's what worries me. Like, long term, yes, it's the long term. When the next bill comes out, are they going to put the VAT up to 25%? That's going to cripple my business. Because yes, we can charge more, but they're going to take more. So when the last recession happened, I found that they kind of put it down to 15%. Kind of let us have a little bit of play. They then bypassed 17.5%, went straight to 20%. Now I think we're going to be in the kind of sector of like Norway and stuff like that at 27%, 25%. That's what I do not want to happen. And if it has to happen, then man, let's have that happen in 2 years' time, because they're going to want this money back. That's what worries me. That's the only thing that I'm worried about.
Thanks, guys. That's been terrific. Declan, Simon, long-term help, the VAT rates, how it's all about paying this money back.
Daniel mentioned VAT, and a cut in VAT is being discussed. Simon might know more about this than I do. And then there is a big debate going on among economists about how quickly do we pay back this enormous debt. The government borrowing figures this morning were shocking, 130 billion in borrowing on the government overdraft in new loans. But that's the cost of protecting jobs. That's the cost of cushioning the employment, and there are lots of cushioning the economy, and there are lots of economists out there who say that actually what you're doing is you're investing in jobs and wages that will return, that this is an investment, not expenditure, so it's well worth doing it.
I think that Declan's right, of course, and I think that the government does have to get some of this money back. It cannot, have this level of debt, but it's how it gets it back. Now, I'm sure there'll be a lot of Tory MPs that will be arguing for their small businesses and will be saying, do not hit them. They are the backbone of my constituency. The government need to look at the big businesses where the big money really is. But they're much more international, and it's much more difficult. So, we are in, I'm afraid, for very tough times.
Mickey, get that tenner out of your wallet, Mickey.
Yeah, you'll need it. In fairness, the government have been printing, and if everyone pays the money back that they've borrowed, then it can be written off the balance sheet. But that's it for the future. Now, before you two, Declan, Simon, scuttle off to the local beauty parlour, because that should take a while, give us an idea of what we can expect this week. Simon, you kick off.
Yes. Well, I think the debate is still going to be around the 2-metre rule. I think Northern Ireland is significant. One government has now conceded that point. And I think the other thing is the schools. I think there's a growing clamour for people to go back to get the kids back. And I think that's going to be the big argument.
A lot of my friends, their parents are saying, please take them back.
There's a cliche that's around about the coronavirus crisis, that it has made us realise what's really valuable in life. And whilst many of us have been happy to entrust our luscious locks to our nearest and dearest, wielding scissors and holding a fruit bowl, as soon as those hairdressers open, we're going to be beating the doors down again. If the ones in Northern Ireland open before the ones in England, my mother's going to see me a lot earlier than she expected.
I don't even get the benefit of the fruit bowl, but there you go. Simon Declan, many thanks for that. Well, that's all from us for now. Let's talk to the MP for Wimbledon yesterday, Stephen Hammond. Look out for that interview on the website coming up soon.
And as Simon said, he was fighting for his small businesses. He definitely wants us to get out there and support the small local businesses. In the meantime, read our blogs, tell us your story. Email us at contactus@backinbusiness.org.uk. Visit the website, find us on LinkedIn, or we're on Twitter at business_backin. And next week, we'll be talking about mothers in business. See you then.